Hi, good morning. It's Jim from maverickstar Observatory. I've tried to simplify this as much as I physically possibly could, and I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do a better job than what I've got it at the moment. The whole idea of this is that we make it simple for people to realise. The more people that realise that CO2 is nothing but lies and a hoax, the sooner we can stop bankrupting millions of families and businesses around the world as a result of this. And not only that, governments will have to look somewhere else for in order them to tax people, because this is going to bankrupt the world if we allow it to carry on. It is very important, and that's why I've put so much time and effort in over the last couple of weeks to try and simplify it for you guys, so that you have no question of a doubt what is going on is a pack of lies. And what I've tried to do with this chart is put all the information on there as simply as I can, so that even if you're just looking at the chart and I don't have to talk about it, you get an idea of what's really going on. Now, I'm just going to go through a few things on the chart, but before I do, just want to say a big thank you to those few people that are supporting the observatory. You know, again, beginning of the month, it's looking like we're going to merge straight back into the red. We've got till January to clear up a deficit. And, you know, think about the work, what we're doing and what we're showing people. You would think that everybody would be behind us. It's not the case. You know, 1,000 people may see this video in the next 24 hours, and we'll be lucky if one or two people put their hand in the pocket and put a bit of support up for the observatory. The work we're doing is against everything. We should be supported by thousands of people, not just one or two. So you know what, guys? Can I just encourage you to make a little bit of effort and put a bit of support in that link down below for the observatory? And I'll do whatever I physically can with time and what little bit of money I raise in order to educate people a little bit more on this matter. I know it's like trying to teach a jury how to understand DNA science so that they can, you know, find someone guilty or not guilty. This is the sort of thing that happens in courts every time DNA evidence is admitted to the jury. They have to be, you know, taught how the evidence was gathered, how DNA sampling works. And this is, I can see this is quite similar to that. You know, there are a lot of aspects to climate and climate change and climate history, but what's happening right now is nothing short of criminal, and people are losing their livelihoods over it, and businesses are having to change the way in which they do business. It's just, in short, bankrupting everybody, not just manufacturing, but in the way we produce food. You know, your food prices are going up. They're trying to kill off the cattle markets around the world. So it's important that we all have a grasp and understanding of, first of all, where the lies originate from, where they've focused their lies on. And if we can understand the truth, then we've got a way of combating, hopefully, in the future, what is happening right now. So it's really important. I hope you understand the reason why I'm making such an effort in trying to simplify things so that people understand about climate. And we won't, hopefully, see organisations like Extinction Rebellion even take to the streets when they understand that their information is completely falsified and it's nothing short of a hoax. It's bogus. That's what we need to really clarify with people. Now, having said that, let's get into what is actually on the chart. So I've marked the interglacial periods and the glacial periods, as you can see with the colours that I have. So you can see the time periods where we've gone into interglacial periods. I've also marked a line of 0 degrees Celsius on there, so you can see where the interglacial periods peak above 0 degrees Celsius, and when it drops below 0 degrees, you can see that that is the cut-off point for glacial and interglacial periods. I will promise you, try and simplify this as best I can for you. You can see that over the 400,000 years we've gone through, including the period of time that we're in right now, 5 interglacial periods. They usually last, on average, 10 to 12,000 years. Sometimes they can go up to 15,000 years. But I've circled the most important and the most recent interglacial cycle, and I want to explain why CO2 has increased to the limits that it has, because if I can do that, you can see that it's nothing to do with mankind. This happened a lot longer ago, 12 to 15,000 years ago, when an average temperature emerged. You can see that because if you look at the circled area on the map at the end where 0 is, you can see that the temperature just fluctuates over the last 15,000 years on an average of -1 degree Celsius. And that is the reason why CO2 has increased. This never happened since the 1800s like they're telling us. This has been happening for the last 10 to 15,000 years. This is a natural anomaly that has occurred. It's obviously different to all the other interglacial periods because we have maintained that temperature for that period of time. Why we've done that, I really don't know. I do not know the answer to that. I will work on it. I think the only way to find out the answer to this period of time of the last 10 to 15,000 years is to do core samples, and we can't afford to do that at this observatory. But what we have got is the historical climate data, and we can see where the changes occurred. And the most important thing is that the changes occurred around 10 to 15,000 years ago, and that was when we started to have a maintained temperature on average of -1 degree Celsius. Now CO2, you can see, begins to get released at -6 degrees Celsius. So when it goes even above that temperature and starts to go close towards 0 degrees, more CO2 is released out the oceans and land because it just can't hold it in its solution or in its form. So it gets released at that point. You can see that it occurs. I've drew the grey line on there so you can see where it starts to increase CO2 from that point. So as soon as temperature goes above -6 degrees Celsius, we start to have a release of carbon dioxide or CO2. When it starts to get close to the 0 degrees Celsius, there is an increased acceleration in CO2. And if you maintain a temperature above -0 degrees Celsius, you will maintain therefore an increase in the production of CO2 going into the atmosphere. Now, their key focal point in substantiating the claims that they are is that from the 1800s we started to emit more CO2 into the atmosphere, and therefore we have created the problem. It's a lie. You can see this occurred 12,000 to 15,000 years ago. So we have proved them wrong with this chart. We've absolutely smashed their beliefs that man has created a problem of an average temperature that we see on this chart of -1 degrees. This happened a lot longer, 10,000 years, 12,000 years before the Industrial Revolution started. So we know that man was not responsible for putting the CO2 into the atmosphere, and therefore man should not have to pay taxes for that reason as well. It's really important that we change this scenario that is happening right now, because the global economics will suffer as a result of this. They already have, and they are going to continue as long as we don't set the record straight on climate. Guys, I hope I've simplified it for you enough now so that you can see where their lies originate from, the 1800s, and where the problem really originated from between 12 and 15,000 years ago. And is the other side of this. They are changing the way we produce electricity, changing the way we manufacture things. They are modifying and changing food production techniques. They are trying to do away with cattle rearing farms, and of course this is having a detrimental impact on everybody cost wise. It will, if it continues and they continue to do this, they will bankrupt the global economic system that we have in place. But before they do that, they will put thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people out of work and on the streets. That's why this has to stop. The other flip side of this is, as you can see, for some reason we have not gone back into a glacial period for very long. At the end of the chart, where it's 0, which is the present day, we should have been already in a glacial period or heading into a glacial period maybe 1,000, 2,000 years ago. Whatever reason that has created the scenario that we're looking at over the last 12 to 15,000 years is not known yet. But nevertheless, it is the case. And as long as that temperature is maintained at that rate, more CO2 will go into the atmosphere. So we can't do nothing about this, because if you look at the other charts that I've showed you, it takes around, on average, 100,000 years to remove 100 parts per million or thereabouts out of the atmosphere. And therefore, whatever we do today, we're not going to see the benefits of it for thousands of years, because for one, there is, as you can see, over 1,000 to 2,000 years lag before, even when the temperatures go down, that it affects the quantities of CO2 in the atmosphere. So if temperature dropped today, we wouldn't see noticeably a decrease in the CO2 for probably 1,000 years in the atmosphere. And that decrease in CO2 would be minuscule. So we'd be looking for a needle in the haystack, even if we shut the CO2 off today that we produced. That's why we are not going to be able to do anything with this problem, and we should not be doing what we're doing right now. What we should be more focused on is when things turn negative for us, because you can see there has been only one other point in time where temperature has maintained this span of time for this long as what we're experiencing now. And if you go back just over 400,000 years on this record, you'll see that that was the case. But the difference between that was it stayed warmer for the same amount of time as what it is right now, but it didn't fluctuate like it is right now. So it's very difficult to compare 400,000 years climate with the present day climate and what has changed. And that is what confuses a lot of scientists and a lot of people. So, that's why I think it's well worth, talking about every aspect of what we've put on this chart. The other thing is we are going into a glacial period at some point. We can see when we look at the short range temperature chart over the last 1,500 years, we're on the bottom where it crosses 0 degrees. So we're heading towards a glacial period. How long it takes for this Earth to look like it's in a glacial period is, for debate. That is still for debate. Does it take 2 years? Does it take 20 years? Can it take 1,000 years? We just don't know. And I could, as an argument, if I wanted to try and influence you that it could happen really soon, I could say, well, look, we've found mammoths with food still in the mouth, so they must have been eating at the point in time they was flash frozen. I don't think that we will see something like that happen, but what I will bring to your attention is in 2021, we have seen 2 million square kilometres of ice rebound over the Arctic Circle. So again, this doesn't go in line with what they're saying about the ice caps melting, because they're actually increasing. So, there's a lot that they've made a lot of mistakes on, and I'll just be polite. They might not be lying, they might just be misinterpreting the data, but I find it hard for 1,000 scientists to misinterpret the data. We don't know who these scientists are. If we got a list, we can start checking their credentials, but it's like someone said in the comments section the other day, if people like Greta Thunberg have an influence on the United Nations in telling them that they should be doing more, then maybe, all we need to do is go to a few elementary schools and we'll find these 1,000 scientists in them. It's a bit of a joke there, but, this matter is not funny. This is going to destroy the global economic system if it continues. Do you realise how much you have already paid in taxes as a result of CO2. And they want us all to drive electric cars. This is like we are being led by a drunken captain on this ship. He's got no idea of navigation, and this is what the United Nations are like. They're not giving us a clear direction, and they're not giving us clear facts that make sense. If they're saying that from the 1800s, beginning of the Industrial Revolution, we have emitted so much CO2 into the atmosphere, and completely, not looked at this chart when it clearly started to happen 12 to 15,000 years ago, then how accurate is that information that they are relaying back to us, and how the hell are they getting away with it? I'm starting to think to myself now that the United Nations have not been elected by anybody really, other than themselves. It's like the European Union. That is another unelected body, but they all require taxes. It's like NATO, another unelected. Let's say the only people that elect them are world leaders and very rich and wealthy people. Now, there must be a reason for this. All I'm saying is, even if they did collect trillions through CO2 taxes, there is nothing that they can do about the CO2 in the atmosphere to reduce it. The only way you will reduce it is by going back, as we see, back into a glacial period, and that is on the cards. And that will be a slap in the face for them, because when CO2 starts to drop eventually, and it will, we can see it has happened many times before, when it drops, how can they uphold their lives? But you know what? We've already pulled the pants down and given a good slap here, because we've shown what they're saying about the 1800s and the Industrial Revolution is a pack of lies, because temperature had already increased 12,000 to 15,000 years ago. It's really important, guys. That's why I'm putting that effort in, and I'm talking so much about this, because I understand how much it is having the squeeze on people. Guys, it's really important that we keep this beacon of light going. There is a link down there. Put a little bit of effort in. You can see I'm making as much effort as I physically can, but put a little bit of effort into supporting what we do, and we might stand a chance. Remember what I said the other day. If you believe you can't before you begin to do something, you won't. You will fail immediately. You need to be more optimistic and know how powerful you can be. The only way people have ever achieved anything is because they thought they could. That's what we all need to be thinking. That we can do something about the situation that we find ourselves in today. And you know what? More than ever before, this is a global problem, and we all need to come together, no matter all regards to whatever country we're in. We are all facing this problem together, and we need to work and resolve this problem out together. Which is why it is so important to support little observatories like ours. Guys, I hope I've done a good job today in explaining this, but if there is anyone out there that wants a little bit more clarity on this, I will try my best to help you out, because I really want everybody to understand this is nothing but a hoax, and a very expensive one to all of us. Guys, as always, bye for now.